Hi there, my name is Sheila Beck and the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share and subscribe and ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop. So this is a bit of a new thing for me. We're doing a new strand of program where I'm trying to get into, actually I'll tell you what it is. There was a movie show that I used to love in like the early 90s, late 80s by Alex Cox called Movie Drome, where basically he just talked about movies he absolutely adored. And there's a bunch of movies I love. And you know, I want to try and do something that was a little bit off the beaten track, and I am been fortunate and blessed enough to have not one, not two, but three people to come along with me this week when we talk about Alan Moore and Mitch Jenkins. I think their first thing you could call a movie that they call showpieces. So let me introduce you to the panel. First, we have the mega, the one, the only, the filmmaker, Mega Geek, who I do hope you go to the channel, Rebecca Gold. And if you haven't seen Rebecca Gold, watch it, and also watch the Killing Zone on the channel as well.
Killing Zone's on there too. Yep.
Killing Zone's on the channel. So I'm really excited for your input because you're a filmmaker and you can point out everything they did wrong. And I'm sure you're gonna.
I'll wait. Yeah.
Also joining us is live from Birmingham. I can't remember. I was trying to remember your intro.
That's near enough.
And I can't remember what it was. Introduce yourself. You're so good at it.
Birmingham's King of the Geeks. I'm not actually in Birmingham, but it's near enough. Yes, hello everybody. And yeah, this is typical because just as in the UK, lockdown starts to ease off, Rabbi, bit by bit, you go and lock us in your video vault.
I do. Oh no, we're opening the vault. So yeah, again,
I like that bit better, yeah.
They're talking about re-upping all the restrictions again. Here anyway in Israel. So
if we're surrounded by good movies, actually they don't have to be good. Just if we're surrounded by movies.
I think most people drain Netflix from the last bout. If we're getting more serious, we need more streaming service. Which I hear Disney and HBO rubbing their hands when I say that. For our final compadre on this journey into the weird and the surreal is, of course, the great problem being. Well, I love your new avatar. Problem being, to the world.
Sorry?
Well, that's good enough. Apologise.
No, I just apologise for everything. I'm sorry. That's my default state. Yeah.
Let me just share a screen. I've got a bunch of screen grabs from the movie we're discussing, which is Alan Moore's first thing written for cinema. It's Showpieces, which was. It was original. So here, this is the what I believe where it came from. It was Alan Moore has done a bunch of like performance art things. If you ever see a copy of of an audio like a spoken word thing called The Unearthing, that's particularly good. But he's done a bunch of like these performance art things, and that's where he met Mitch Jenkins, the director, who's a photographer, who started to record them, and then they did a magazine together called Dodge and Logic, and he got really into like all this like grotesque, burlesque photography, which is where I think the first short came from, then the second short. And basically this was actually a bunch of 5 shorts. You guys, I realized there was two other parts to it that you didn't see that was on the DVD, which I should have sent you, so I apologize for that. But that's essentially where it came from. This is from and this is many pieces of Alan Moore's comic books have been made into movies, and he hates every single one of them. He despises every single one. Although I have to tell you, Watchmen, I don't think you can hope for a more faithful adaptation. You know, I think it was as good as you could possibly. I mean, the ending was different. Actually, I have to tell you, the Watchmen TV show, which I actually loathed, they had one episode which was freaking awesome. I just wish the whole thing was like that.
The movie wasn't.
Let's go with first impressions. So, Mega Geek, you are the first in line. What was your first impression of this?
I didn't like it. I did like it.
Mega Geek didn't like it. And I really wanted your voice on the panel because we about it. So, what was your impressions of it? And if you can explain how he got there as well.
it was just a chore to get through. I understood what was going on. As Dave Cullen said once when he was when he was reviewing Dune, he was saying basically they could have taken the short road, but they took the long way around to explain the same thing when they could have taken the short road. It's the same thing with this as well. You got that thing about her writing. Well, I've got notes here. It says.
Well, I tell you what. I don't want to get into the plot. Yeah, that'll be the next round when we start.
All right. Well, my impression was it was just style over substance. It
was a lot of work to access. You know what? I think I can hear that criticism. I really can. Yeah, I think Alan Moore's work in general, since the second volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I guess will be around 20 years ago, has been nothing's been easy to read. Nothing's been easy to process. He makes you work very hard, a lot for all it. Now I think what's going on with that is he so hates the adaptations of his work. He so absolutely hates it. The only way he feels he can copy protect it is to make it too clever for people to understand.
To make it unfilmable.
No, that's not it though. I didn't understand what was going on.
I'm not talking about this thing specifically.
All right.
I'm talking about the later League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, his book.
I understood that.
The abstract, aren't they? The later volumes of it.
I mean, like I started reviewing. I started reading the last volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I had really no idea what was going on. So I went back and started reading everything from scratch, plus all the text stuff. And once you do that, it's a lot of work. It's so much work. But then you can actually appreciate the story, and I kind of get it now. I'm still not sure if it's worth the effort. I'm really not sure. I'm about what? 3/4 of the way through plowing through it, but I'm kind of glad I have. But also his book, what's that book called? Jerusalem. It's over 1 million words long. It's I got about 3 chapters in. That's as far as I got before, but it's like my brain just melted. But yeah, I think that's that. With this piece, not so much. Because I do hear your criticism, but we'll talk about it more once we get into like the plot of the thing. Dan, what was your first impressions?
On my first impression as this kicked off was that this was a bit of me. This is my kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, Ian's right. It's very stylish from the get-go. But I found the first 5 or 10 minutes very, very intriguing, particularly when this very attractive woman starts taking her clothes off. That's never gonna not play well with me. But more to the point, though, it was quite nicely acted, and it was intriguing as well. I thought there was a lot of honesty to that performance, and of course, it's a very sort of intimate scene, isn't it? A point in somebody's life where they're about to take their own life, essentially. But as the film expanded, and as the runtime started to sort of climb up and up and up and up, I got closer and closer and closer to exactly where Ian is, to the point where I found it was like wading through increasingly thick filmatic treacle. And to the point where I came to a virtual stop.
It's only an hour, 17 minutes, and it feels like a good 2 hours.
I felt like I was there for a day, It's hard going.
I think the first 15 minutes, which is set pretty much in our reality, is much easier to digest than when it goes to the other reality. It's
because when people, you form a bond with this lady in particular, and you get behind her and wonder what's going to happen to her. But immediately your sort of point of reference is gone. So your head is spinning while you look for another one to work out what's going next. But the story's actually moving quite quickly for such as it is. Well, and there's a lot of sights and sounds to it. You're constantly being stimulated as it continues, to the point where you do get a bit dizzy. And when that happens too much, when you're overstimulated, quite quickly you do just click out of it all, and it becomes a massive chore.
I just want to let me just say one thing, right? It looks lovely and the acting's okay, it's passable, but having a man walk down a corridor where the phone is constantly ringing and there's all crap on different things on the wall, and he takes about 3 minutes to get to the end of that corridor. I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I do think that's supposed to be viewed very, very, very high. You know, I think if you're very high when you're watching it,
Right.
But if not, yeah, I really, you know what? I think that might be a factor there in it. Fine. Before we get really into it, problem being, what was your impression? Which I'm going to guess we're getting more favourable as the further down the list that we go.
I loved it.
Yeah!
I absolutely loved it. I can see where the guys are coming from, but I come from a background of sort of reading the likes of Robert Anton Wilson and like the Illuminatus trilogy and Cosmic Trigger and all of that, which is kind of where Alan Moore sort of springs from that sort of that kind of background. So I get it. I think I get it. It's more instinctual to me as a piece of dream work, which is what I see it as. Yes, there's a lot of metaphor. Yes, there's a lot of symbolism and imagery in there. But behind the stylism that it sort of hangs itself on, there's a meaning behind every image. It's all planned. He planned all of these, like with the director.
You know, I agree with you. I don't think there's one frame that is accidental of this movie.
None.
I think
Absolutely
everything is intended, and everything is there for a reason, and it's there to decode, which is basically what his work's like. Again, yeah, my re-education of Alan Moore's later work, going to Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen, has been really, really helpful with me getting to a place to appreciate the stuff. Like you know, it is difficult. It is again, it is difficult from a normal film perspective to get through. It gets like it's uncomfortable and it is slow. You know, it does like. But I actually found it. I'm much more on where you are. That I found it more like mesmerizing than.
I was transfixed throughout. I didn't find it lagged. I didn't feel like it was wading through anything. I thought it was very dreamlike. It was very Lynchian in a lot of ways.
It did remind me of Blue Velvet to a certain degree.
Yeah, there is an element of that. But as well as that, I think it's like
Blue Velvet is still on the docket for a movie we're going to go over. That is such a movie we're going to have to talk about. I love that.
But I feel that this was sort of kind of where Neil Gaiman would like to be.
You know what?
In a way.
Right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I do think. I think Neil Gaiman.
It's world building. There is a. I mean, the way that I understood it, and I sort of looked into it after I did a watch, and I could see where they are sort of planning to use this as a bedrock to branch off into its tentacles into other things, into the real world. So they're taking this dream situation into the actual physical world we live in. So like a very transmedia kind of project where they tend to branch out into.
Well, they've completed the next phase, which is called The Show, which is a 2-hour movie, and it was going to get premiered, I think, in March, but at a film festival, I can't remember where. But that obviously, it hit the rocks in 2020. But what we're seeing on the screen right now is from that. And yeah, I do think it's setting up this is called that Nighthampton world as a fictional
sort of a Gormenghast for the 21st century, you know.
So he's going to put it all together for his version of Infinity War in Moore's own mind.
This is, a little bit cheaper, but a little bit cleverer.
A lot more cheaper.
I've no doubt that this is as literate as Problem Being has suggested. It does seem that way, and it's certainly as meticulous as you were saying, Rabbi, visually meticulous. Yeah, there's never a panel or a single sort of millimeter of a page wasted in Moore's comic book work, and I don't for 1 minute expect it to be any different whichever other medium he gets to. And you know, I'm listening to what you were just saying, Problem Being about Gaiman, and you know, with Neil Gaiman, you're saying that this is where Neil Gaiman would like to be. I don't think that it is. I think there's a big sort of, well, not necessarily a big line, but a firm line between the two. I think Neil Gaiman is obviously, he's got these sort of visual signatures, and he's a similar way. He's certainly very literate, and he's got a similar way of enchanting people. But Neil Gaiman is a populist. He wants people to see.
You know, I was going to interrupt you there. When probably when you're saying that, yeah, I think that's where he wanted to be at the beginning of his career when he was doing like what's that?
That's kind of what I really meant. You know, like before you sort of give yourself over to the BBC.
You know. Right, because Alan Moore is not interested in appealing at all.
You know, I think he's much more interested in this like much more populist mainstream stuff, which Alan Moore is just so not interested in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Neil Gaiman had kept his integrity, you know, that's kind of where I mean.
You know, I think it's different. Look, that Alan Moore really doesn't want to be famous or be told what to do. That's like, you know,
definitely not.
You know, so but I don't think Neil Gaiman's that bothered by either of those two things. Fine, let's start talking about the plot of this. So this is broken up. There's essentially 3 shorts put together. The first is called Act of Faith. The second is called Jimmy's End, and the third one is called His Heavy Heart. There were 2 other shorts that weren't included. I'll slot them in when we get there. So let's talk the plot of the first one. So this is gonna be hard to describe. Keep it PG-13. You have this journalist called Faith, and Faith returns home, and she's listening to her messages, which is a little bit out of date because this was made in 2016. People haven't listened to messages since like 1998. But again, that's the world, you know, that's the world Alan Moore lives in. You know, people haven't had answer phones for quite some time.
That was the last time he ventured into society, I think.
Exactly. So she listened to a message from her father, who she hasn't spoken to for a while, who's a bit upset that she's done an article about this dead priest or dead vicar, who there's another bit of that you get to in the bit that you didn't see, and she's invited out with some of her colleagues for dinner to go out have fun, but she'd rather she stays home, and you're not really sure what's going on. She phones up a costume place to see if a paramedic costume has been picked up, and you get the feeling something's going on, right? So then she changes into a very sexy outfit, which was very, very good. Although I really kind of like the realism in that bit, that it wasn't so there was like, you know, it was very sexualized, but there was a little like she was still seemed like a real person. It didn't seem like they used like a Vaseline on the lens to make things. She didn't seem photoshopped. She seemed like a real person. And so she's essentially setting up this sex game where she's hanging herself in the closet. She puts this plastic bag in her mouth, and then her partner is going to burst in and save her as she's dying, and she's basically getting into a bit of autoerotic asphyxiation, which must be freaking incredible, because the risk of that going wrong, forget dying. Can you imagine being caught? If that's how you're found, that's got to be the worst way you could possibly be found dead.
See, even that was lost on me. I thought she was committing suicide.
David Carradine.
No,
that's how he died.
It's
I
a total
know.
role play.
Yeah,
that's from my thing anyway. Yeah, no, it definitely was. It definitely was.
Well, it certainly wasn't as
down, didn't it?
Sorry.
That's why I couldn't save her. Dan, did you not get that bit, Dan? About
I think I started losing interest really quite quickly.
Because the message is on the phone, isn't it? And he's going, "My car's broken down. Hope you haven't started without me." Blah blah blah.
Yeah, don't start. If you start, don't start. And so she's like,
I'm very, very naive.
She's got the rope around her neck, and she's handcuffed herself and got the plastic bag in her mouth, and she hears it and she starts to panic, which is what in fact kills her. Right, because then she starts to struggle. If she more relaxed, she might have been able to get out of it. She starts to struggle, and it fades to black. You see her last view on in this world, and then it fades out. So yeah, I think that let's go short by short. So I think this one was the most accessible. It seemed this was one that went down the easiest, even though it was
Siobhan Hewlett, the actor who played Faith, was absolutely amazing. She was.
I think she was better later on in the.
I think she's got a very naturalistic way of presenting the character, very normalized performance, which gave it added realism. And it sort of that made the transition from that world into the very surreal world later all the more disarming. Because you want to know more about her, that she's okay. What's happened to her, and the change from the real world to the later world is all the more striking and all the more worrisome, and it gives you that real foreboding feeling about her and what where she's at, what she's done, what she's become. So that sort of very naturalistic phone conversation she has with a friend, says she can't make it out tonight when she calls back. And she's having this very sort of normal conversation. We all can relate to that, and then she's making up of this excuse that she's got something else on and she's so busy. And she's about to have this sex game. So it kind of evolves sort of quite gradually into this sort of very normalized thing to a slightly more surreal situation. And then it becomes very surreal and it becomes very dark, and then it sort of tumbles on from there. And I think I
really like the way the storytelling unfolded. It gently gave you all the bits of the story until you felt good. And then you have to think that she's been into this weird for quite some time, because you don't start off with autoerotic asphyxiation and a role play and something. You don't start off there. So she clearly has it's a little bit out of control. She should be in she should be in some Sex Addicts Anonymous program. It's because it's clearly she didn't go out for her normal life, for go out with drinks with friends like a normal person would. She instead decided to stay home and get dressed up and then then hang herself on a red velvet rope in a that was set up. So that was a bit strange. Dan, what were your thoughts on this bit, even though you didn't quite pick up on?
It seems like I didn't understand any of it, and as much as I'm making light of that, I started to lose comprehension of what was going on all the time, all the way through this. I don't know if that means I've got a low attention span or not. Who knows? But during this, as I say, I mean, I liked her. I liked what she was doing. I thought she's clearly a good actress, and I liked all the production values. But yeah, it was. I was struggling to stay engaged with it pretty much from the start. So obviously, it's got me reflecting back, hearing the true what was actually happening. It's interesting, but I've got very few positives to say. Very few positives to say about it. I felt that once we see her sort of, obviously when she does sort of gasp for breath, I did care about that. I won't pretend I didn't. And and when we pick up the story wherever it goes afterwards, I think that having something that dramatic and then it immediately lost me again. It's one of the reasons why I struggled with this film so much.
So see that I really enjoyed that bit, because I didn't feel bad, and actually I enjoyed the humor of it. I enjoyed this is if that happens, what's happening to me, I would laugh, because I'm saying, oh, this is kind of
I'd imagine it happened to you.
This is stuff that nobody makes up and actually happens. This is how I'm going to die, and it would. I
did get the impression, Rabbi, that they were going for black comedy with this. I didn't feel like it was. I never once thought that they were going for straight drama, or that it was trying to be particularly sort of gritty and earthy. It's not Paul Abbott or Alan Bleasdale or Jimmy McGovern. I could see that they were trying. It was trying to be more like the League of Gentlemen or Inside Number 9. But I still couldn't quite get a handle.
I got more Tales of the Unexpected, kind of vibe about it.
You know, I think you're probably that's actually a fair comparison. Meggie, what are your thoughts on the opening section?
It was well performed, looked nice. Didn't care about the character, obviously. You know, you can't care about a character if she's only on the screen for less than 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Don't know who she is. I was wondering what was going on. But then when she was talking about, when she put the noose, I knew exactly what she was going to do. I just didn't care about her. I lost interest like Dan did, you know, halfway through, because it was, do you know what, when people make things like this, right, they're in their own bubble, and you know, that's okay with me. You know, David Lynch, you know, all these famous directors that do weird stuff, it's fine with me, but it's not something that interests me. Do you know what I mean? Because when it comes to art, okay, there are some people that do art for themselves, and there are some people that do art for themselves and everybody else. And I don't think this was written for everybody else. I think it was written for them, really. And
Are you like me? Are you like me? And what? Are you like me?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rabbi. I was going to say, are you like me, Ian? And the one thing that really tunes me out of a conversation is when somebody starts to tell me about the dream they had last night. And that's what I felt this film was like.
Yeah. It was too slow. I mean, I'm talking about the whole thing now. I mean, it's really funny because I never realized until halfway through that was a separate story to, was the other one called Jimmy's End? When the title came up, I was like, okay, this is another story then. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. This stuff, I see a lot of stuff like this, especially from students.
Where did you find these people from, Rabbi? Honestly, I don't understand what they're talking about. Stop.
You know what? When I was at college, I used to get told off. I used to get told off, right? I used to get told off at college because I didn't like 2001, and I thought Blade Runner was too slow. So you know where I'm coming from.
Right?
You know, people always used to tell me off.
Insanity!
So there you go. Yeah.
The difference between this and a standard student film is Alan Moore.
Money.
Well, there's that, the money, but it's also Alan Moore is the only difference between this and a student film. You know, because most student films aren't like pregnant with meaning in every frame. They think they are. They think they do cool things. But again, I really did that. See, I like the very naturalistic like commentary on life and how bizarre and strange life can be. Which I think that the first section, the Act of Faith. I just like that. That to me really something. But again, I completely hear that it was slow. I just like this slow. Like I liked him walking down the corridor slowly. I think that's a good segue into getting to the next bit, Jimmy's End.
I think if you watch something like Twin Peaks, which is very glacial when it's in its sort of dreamlike sequences, I think it's sort of for people who like it. I went to see Empire. What's that Lynch film?
Come Walk With Me.
Oh, it was Inland Empire.
Inland Empire. That was it.
Yeah, that's
it was like a 3.5 hour long film. That is something where you really have to pay attention because some of the pauses on there can go on for like a whole minute. You know, it's so intense. But I think it's the level of intensity, the unexpected, what's coming. This is weird. What's happening? Where are we? What's going on? And that sort of draws me in anyway. I had no problem with it.
This had none of that.
It absolutely
was dull. It was dull. It was well shot. It was all right performed. It was dull.
Again, I found the performance sucked me in. I like again the dark comedy sucked me in because it's really hit me on the what's it say? On the it really hit me on the funny bone. It's like it just like that's kind of dark humor I really enjoy.
I love black humor. Black humor is the best.
And like so essentially the rest of this movie is this other person's death experience, which which I really find very, very interesting. Well, I'm a rabbi. I mean, I'm into theology. You know?
It's very Kabbalistic, actually, because
it really is.
As you move through the scenes of the corridors, you see all this sort of Kabbalistic sigils or magic sigils on the walls.
Right.
He looks at a puppet, he looks at a poster, he looks at this, he looks at that.
It ties in with like a lot of Kabbalistic thought on what life is. You know,
well, yeah, I mean, it's mixing a lot of ancient Greek sort of mythology. It's Egyptian mythology. You've got the Book of the Dead in there. You've got all of these alliterations coming through from all the various sort of archetypal, theological, historical reference points coming in, sort of hitting you on this sort of merging, and sort of it is like a mixer, like a crucible of all these different ideas and thoughts. And as we all know, Alan Moore is a chaos magician, so he's going to have all those influences, and it's all going to be mixed in together with the Kabbalism and the tarot cards, which are actually the RNA strands, because you've got T, G, and A repeated, and they're sort of shuffling the cards and seeing what comes out. And it's actually really clever because it's these people deciding on the RNA and DNA structure of somebody's soul or something. So you've got all these different meanings going on in there. And that, I don't know if any of you read Watermess books as a kid.
Nope.
Did you? Right. Well, there used to be this kid's book of this sort of Afghan hound, and it's like a little cartoon dog. And it's always got its hair in a mess, and it's always sort of rollicking around in the garden. But it's always little gnomes or fairies or something going off, birds, insects. And you look at one scene in that, and you've got all these little things going off, and you're sort of looking around at the whole picture, and you've got the story going on, the central story of this dog, sort of getting its hair all tangled up, and it's all these little things going on in the background. You keep looking at, and it's all little narratives running off and streams, and it's quite a cute book. So I used to grow up with that. So it's something I like, is when you've got other things going off in the background, and you're sort of looking at that, and you're sort of going off in a tangent. I think that sort of speaks to the dream world in which we enter into here, which is always intriguing me, because it's like, what's that?
This is the kind of conversations I had when I was at college. When I used to talk to students, I used to say similar things to what you've been saying. But at the end of the day, right, if the majority of people don't get it, it's failed. Right, this film has failed.
I disagree with that. Britney Spears can sell 1 billion records. Does it mean it's a good record? No, it doesn't.
It's not about what's good or bad. What it's about is basically trying to your target. So if Alan Moore's target
depends who he's made it for.
Yeah, exactly. So if Alan's target was him, then he's done a really great job.
So if you go to the Tate Modern and you look at a piece of art, and there's nothing to tell you what it means.
Yeah.
Is it for you, or is it just for the artist or the person?
For the artist, not for me.
Well, that's very subjective.
I know, it's my opinion, and I don't have any problem with how you think. It's great the way you think that way. If you see so much more in Alan Moore's work, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but for me, it didn't fail me.
No, that's great. It didn't fail you, but it failed me. That's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing.
So it didn't fail everyone.
Well, the majority of people, I'm guessing now, who watch this, won't get it, of course.
That's a guess.
Of course it is a guess.
I think it's like this. I was watching, the documentary of Peter Greenaway, which I'm sure is not one of your favorite guys there, Mega Geek. Yeah, Peter Greenaway.
I like some of his films, not all.
But like I say, this one he was talking about Prospero's book, which is the weirdest of the movies that I could have seen. He did more movies after that, but I didn't see them. And he was basically saying people, when they go to cinema, they expect to firstly emote and to be a part. People have a very different experience when they go to see a movie as opposed to when they go to look at a painting, right? And his point was that if it's an art film or an art painting, then it should be a similar thing. And I think that's probably I'm in the room, but I'm pretty sure that was both Mitch Jenkin and Alan Moore's rationale, that this was an art movie. It wasn't designed to entertain. Even though
I don't disagree with that. That's the thing. You guys can have your opinion and I have mine. As far as I'm concerned, that we're talking about the first half, right? It was all right. Second half was, you know what I mean. But if you guys loved it, that's all the better for you guys. But for me, this kind of stuff doesn't really stimulate me, or
I know exactly where you're coming from, Ian. And I think this is the difference between when you go to a tourist resort, for example, and there's lots, say the average sort of the average road is sort of abuzz with clubs and bars and various attractions and things going on. I think the difference between certain kinds of movies, even things like the more populist, absurdist stuff, I think it's the difference between going past a club where the people representing that club are out in the street and giving you flyers and trying to get you to come in and all the rest of it. Whereas this is one of the side street clubs, which may have the doors open and somebody sort of sat inside, sort of slightly beckoning, but they don't really care whether you come in or not, because whatever, it's their domain, and you can come in. You're not welcome, but they're not actively trying to bring you in. They're not meeting you halfway. They're not, and I don't think Ian is saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I think he was starting with, okay, it's in rings. It's like the inside of a tree, or the rings of a tree. So you think, okay, you start right the way inside. He's made it for himself. He's made it for the people immediately around him who share all these views and who live his life alongside him. And maybe his fan base, the next circle out would be his fan base. He knows they're going to like it too. And
I think he made it purely for himself. I don't think he made it.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I don't think any problem with that. Most artists paint for themselves, or most musicians make music for themselves. If people like it, they like it.
They view that as a great deal of them. A great deal of them, when they've achieved a certain amount of success, then whether other people like it or not, whether they come to the party or not, want to come and have a drink inside, is almost inconsequential. And when you get this far down the rabbit hole with Alan Moore, and he's got his integrity intact, his vision is intact, then he can afford to not give a damn.
I'll give you an example, right? Look at David Bowie's career. When he first started off, he was obscure. He was quite brilliant, actually, his music. And then he got to the 80s and he suddenly realized that his music was brilliant, but he also talked to the masses as well. So his music took a complete right turn. When it came to the 80s, he was on MTV. He did all these songs that people really liked, the majority, the normies liked. And then suddenly he went off in obscurity again. But that's what I'm saying, right? It's whatever, if you've got a different taste, then you've got a different taste. I've got no problem with that.
He can go off into obscurity. I mean, his last album, Black Star, is a really hard album to listen to.
I agree.
He had the full integrity to follow his vision. He's never towed the line. Even his popular stuff.
That's what I'm saying. He did.
Even his popular stuff was just an experiment.
I saw a documentary on him recently. He did toe the line.
I am a massive David Bowie fan.
All right,
I can tell you.
All right, he got screwed by the manager that was looking after him. So he had a lot of money to pay back. So he did toe the line to pay back the money. That's why he did all those songs, and he ended up on MTV, and then when he had enough money to pay off, whatever, and where he was in a happy place, he went off and did, what he wanted to do.
Actually, can I just take the conversation in a different tangent for a second? I love it. I really love it. When you get these avant art, and they go,
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying what I've learned. And problem being, hats off to you. If you loved it, that's fine with me. I have no problem.
They were both like populist period. I'll say it's great when you get like these weird avant-garde artists. They do off-the-wall things that nobody can relate to and aren't that popular. And all of a sudden, when they do something very, very populist, it's always fascinating. I love that. So I'm hoping one day Alan Moore will go. I do like Alan Moore when he does Green Lantern as well. It's a lot of fun. When you see him go there. But this is the. I wanted to pick up something that Dan said about the analogy you said of finding a club, which is a great segue to explain the plot of this
the club.
Because you got this chap, this guy James,
Jimmy.
and he wandered into this. He's in this rain-strewed evening. He wanders into this working man's club, which I kind of get is some kind of like, low rent brothel. I haven't been to one, but I assume that's what
it's a
like.
burlesque club, isn't it? So it's in keeping with the director's sort of theme, I guess.
But it's all very seedy and very 1970s. Again, it's like one of those working man clubs. So he goes in there. He meets Faith, who we saw at the beginning, who is not happy. Faith is much more like this by the time we see it the second time, and she's kind of like a prisoner, or sort of a prisoner of a
like purgatory, isn't it?
Sorry,
like purgatory. Like a holding pen for the end of the world.
What's going on? And there's other people in this club, and eventually, he walks up and down a corridor a couple of times with the phone ringing, which I really like that. I really like that.
I hated it. I was like, get on with it. What is wrong with you? Just get on with it.
It's entering the dream zone, and it's irritating. It does have that irritation, and I found that quite an intense thing, because it was like, get through that bloody corridor. That phone's driving me nuts. But I think that's the whole point. It's the whole point.
Well, you see, I think the ringing telephone, and this is just my own thought, is that corridor is kind of like the like a connection between the world we live in and this afterlife world. It's like
afterlife is calling,
and then there's ringing, and so there is a connection to it, but you can't. Nobody's picking it up. There's no like you can't. You're so close, but you're so far at the same time. That's what I think all those corridor scenes are. But eventually, there's a very strange double act. You have Alan Moore as Mr. Metatron. Where you find a picture of him?
Yeah, a picture on the wall.
Mr. Metatron, and the other guy, Mr. What's the name? Match.
Something. Nicky
Match Break.
Yeah, is it Michael? Mickey Match Break or Nicky
Match Break?
Yeah.
So the method. This is clearly meant to be God, and the other guy is meant to be the devil. So eventually, Jimmy is brought into this into the main auditorium, main stage, which is full of lots of strange, grotesque burlesque people. And Alan Moore's Mr. Metron steps onto
the stage. You missed
stage.
Something, by the way.
Oh, what I meant?
You missed the bit which I found fascinating, because you only learn it as the story goes on, is when he's looking at his death as a cartoon on TV.
Oh, yes! That was really clear. You see in the background on TV this very 1950s style cartoon of
which they're doing a full length. Alan Moore's doing a full length version of that cartoon. So again, it sort of spins off into the transmedia. Mr. Hugh or Mr. Hugh or Mr. Hugo or something like that.
Exactly.
I won't be watching that.
No, would I?
You're probably being going to watch that. I will pay for that.
Oh yeah,
you would, Rabbi.
I love that he's doing it, and I really did want to like this film, but
so did I. No. My God.
Listen, you can only be honest, mate. It's
tickled me that he's doing it, because it's so Alan Moore to do that. But
well, this is the point where we first see Faith sort of in the clutches of Nicky Matchbright, who's clearly like a devilish figure, but we don't know if Matchbright
this is totally my fault, because one of the two shorts that I didn't send you, which was so stupid of me. I only realized when it started. One was Faith arriving in the club, and it's called Upon Reflection, and you see the whole thing played out on the mirror, and that's the most violent one, where one of the guys in the bar is the priest or the vicar or whatever that she wrote the story on, who intimated that she that he molested her, and basically she realizes that she's in hell or in a hellish situation very, very quickly, and that's how she becomes one of the denizens therein. But then there's a bit where the other short is a professional relationship, which talks about where it's got Alan Moore and the Nicki Matchbright. So yeah, Metal and Matchbright. And you know, it's so the Matchbright is complaining that the Metatron is completely in control of everything, and he doesn't have any say in anything. And Alan Moore's in the Metatron's like, yeah, that's basically right. That's exactly right, which is entirely Jewish philosophy on how the relationship between God and the devil, which is the devil being subservient to God, and Alan Moore essentially writes God as a megalomaniac, which if God was human, he would be. Which is a fair, I think take on it. And then so he enters and he gets very otherworldly at that point. It feels like Breakfast of Champions, and he gives a little talk which is essentially encapsulating this guy's James' life. And then the lights go white, and then that's the end of that show.
Okay.
You know what, right? All that stuff is I can understand all that stuff, and that's exactly what everything was saying. But I obviously don't agree with the way he was presenting it. But you know, that's just me, right? So I mean, you guys loved it, so you know.
Listen, vive la différence, baby.
Vive la différence.
Yeah, exactly.
Cinema that we all agree on.
Yeah,
which
sure.
is again, that's really the point of this show. I want to have an interesting, challenging cinema that does something different. That says something, you know, there isn't your normal thing. And the drawback of that is it is going to be hit and miss. Some you're going to like, some you're not. It's just the way. Yeah.
The saving grace of it for me, and this
Yeah.
is right the way through, without preempting what's coming next. The saving grace of all of this for me was the acting. I thought some of the acting was excellent.
Amazing.
Especially from the clown guy.
Oh yeah.
Good segue. Good segue. Do we have a picture of him? Let me find a picture of the clown.
And I want those boots as well, I have to say.
Oh yeah, they are.
See those.
So, on one of the extras, Alan Moore's talking about the porous nature between fiction and reality. Like you make that things from fiction come through to reality. And an interesting story is that he wrote the story with this insane clown. And then around the time the movie came out, or maybe like a month or so later, there was a strange clown stalking his street in Northampton that nobody knew who he was, like the papers. So I do think that happens.
Rabbi, there's a lot of strange clowns in Wolverhampton at night. Trust me, I've been drinking there a lot. Especially where the Wetherspoons.
Well, apparently, according to Alan Moore, it's a very strange place and always has been. And that's why he said it. They said during the Industrial Revolution there was some sort of satanic group there, right near where they started the Industrial Revolution. It was also the last place in Britain to stop the witch burnings.
Right.
So, that was quite interesting.
That was last week.
Yeah.
a week last Monday.
Problem being, could you explain to me the bit where Mickey or Nicky, whose name washes his hands in the sink and then the water turns black? What does that mean? Because I was a bit lost there.
I took it as two different things. One, that his hands are like soot because he's like a devil figure. The other was that whoever the attendant was doing the shuffling of the RNA codes in those sort of tarot cards is just a prankster. So, you know, because he said something about, oh, you're always having a joke at my expense or something like that. And he goes to wash with the soap. And I think it's one of those joke soaps where it's, you know.
No, maybe. I didn't understand what was going on there. But anyway,
I think it may have been Eris, the goddess of chaos. Who might
fair
have
enough.
been in that. That's what I took from it, as someone who sort of understands the kind of chaos magic.
This is the problem I have with it. You know, things are not clearly defined. But then again, as I said, I think Alan Moore made it for Alan Moore. So yeah, and his fans, of course.
You know, I really like cinema where you are where your interpretation is key to understanding it. One of my favorite endings of a movie ever was Inception. Like when you see like the little thing spinning, and does it wobble before it turns to black or not? Like, and it's all about the viewer's interpretation of it defines the story, which I love. That I think it makes it interactive.
My favourite ending is the taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. That ending's to die for. That ending is so fucking fantastic. It's unbelievable. When I saw that, I laughed. I just laughed my head off for 15 minutes as the credits was rolling. I love that ending. Sorry, there you go. I digress. I digress.
Digression is fine. That's what YouTube is for. Fine. So we're in the final section, which I think is when we get into full on horror. I think it went from like weird black humor to what? To the second one to yeah. So now we're on full on horror when he's met God and now he's on to being judged for his life. And they go for the Egyptian theology where they also what the clown is his chief accuser, I guess.
Well, he dons the headdress of Anubis,
right?
Who's the judge of at the end of someone's life. So they judge on your deeds, the God judge. So he's taking on that role. So we don't actually know if God is actually God of the devil is the devil, and we don't know if this guy's Anubis or not. So it's a bunch of crazy people in this weird hell-like place. So it could all be an illusion, all part of a dream. So we don't really know. So it's like your last dying thoughts sort of all swirling around. So it could be absolutely anything. So it's a complete distortion of all theologies, all sort of coalescing into one place. That's what I saw. So he's there with the Book of the Dead and he's reading from it and he's shouting at it. He's got the guy with what's his name? Jimmy. He's got him in he's sort of strapped to a chair. He's got this mouth brace, so his mouth is fixed open.
Really, that's really horrific. They force his mouth open and then put the braces so he can't close his mouth. And they give him nectar, which they didn't have, so they only have a tin of rice pudding.
Ambrosia. I think that joke was pretty
right. They're trying to pull down his throat, and that's part of the ritual. And essentially, what they do is they're talking about his life and how he's like this terrible womanizing person, and I think his real crime is that he never really loved someone. Is what they say. And they tear out his heart, which is just a playing card, which is with a bit of blood on it. And they're going to weigh his heart next to a feather. And if his heart is heavier, that means he is guilty. And then he's going to be condemned in a terrible manner. And of course, his heart is heavy. So he's wheeled in to this disgusting, like, fat guy with this distorted mouth that just eats people. That's his final fate is he's going to be eaten and eventually turned into poo. It's greeted out. And then just before he is eaten, the clown says, "Well, if you do whatever we tell you to, you can come with us." And so he's like, "I'll do absolutely anything. This is the worst thing humanly possible. I'll do anything at all." And so essentially he says, "Fine, you can come and live with me and be my sex slave thing." All through this, he's aided and abetted by the burlesque woman we see on the screen now, whose panic is spelled with a KH for the beginning of both her names. And he's introduced into the movie ends. He's introduced into the world they live in now, which is Nighthampton, which is the underworld, the dream state of Northampton. And it's essentially where it ends. So I think that's the entire. But if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want to be spoiled, I should have warned you. Spoilers.
Maybe you should put that, when you've edited this, put that in at first.
Yeah, put that in first.
That really matters.
You need a bit like they used to have at the front of VHS tapes, where Simon Bates used to warn you about the certificate of the video you're about to watch. You need to get yourself, done up like that.
Warning: the rabbi might laugh a lot. That's
This film has been certified freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what? People should pay to get that on their DVD. So
I agree.
Fine. So that's really the entirety of the movie, and we got basically the clown's got this thick northern accent, and he's very matter of factly and like very what's the word? Very like realistically acting out the role of Anubis as one would do. Okay, so let's. If were either of you two guys awake by this point? Ian, you go.
No, I was. I mean, I when I watch something, I watch it, 100% attention. Anything I watch, I always watch it 100% attention. Mind you, dude, I did make notes though while I was watching it. Because sometimes when you make notes, it brings you closer to what's actually happening on screen. Makes you see more. So I was making notes as I was watching it. But as I said, I didn't really enjoy it personally because it's really not my thing. Not to say I'm not into artistic and artistic making movies and art in general. I am definitely, but I thought this was made. Alan Moore made this for himself and his fans.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could disagree with you, including Alan Moore.
Yeah, exactly. Alan Moore wrote it for himself. So, but as I said, though, it's the film. You can't fault the filmmaking. It's very well shot. It looks nice. Sounds good. You know what I mean? The acting is it's there. I wouldn't
for
say
250,000 quid. Pretty neat job. Great team around them.
Yeah. I should try to work with £14,000, mate. Let me tell you.
I think the cinematography, particularly in the Jimmy's End section, that's really stunning. I really thought that was great. That I thought those.
Actually, no, I thought the beginning photography was much better because they had those long lenses, and it starts off where you didn't even know what you're looking at. You see these lights and stuff, red and green, another thing, Rabbi, did you and problem being, did you notice that really clever shot with the spools going around?
It turns into a skull.
It turns into a skull.
I love that. All done with the focus, and I thought that was
that was very clever.
Wow, I totally missed that.
Look at it again.
Needless to say, I completely missed it.
That was my favourite shot from the whole film.
Yeah, it was a really nice shot. And also, I don't know whether they did it accidentally, because there's no way you could look at that thinking that's a skull. Do you know what I mean?
Well, no, I think I'm sure they must have done it. I mean, I don't know if it's purely by accident of the design, but when they defocused, they must have seen it, or if they had picked it specifically for that. I go with the idea it was done specifically because
maybe,
it was every frame is on purpose. So I think that as it's sort of pulling out and sort of going out of focus, and you get that shape of the skull, you've got the music becoming really dirgy, and it's going really bad. So I think it was all deliberate.
My guess is Mitch Jenkins probably did that, and he showed it to Alan Moore and said, what do you think of this? And Alan Moore wrote it in. Who
knows?
Because Alan Moore said very specifically that every single shot, I mean, after about 24 pages in, he has already worked out the entire every scene, shot by shot, frame by frame. So he definitely would have come up with that, and he would have passed it on to the director. I don't think Alan Moore would have been.
The thing about filmmakers is that they do fib a lot. I'm a filmmaker, of course I fib a lot. So I remember once somebody was criticizing one of my things, and they were saying, "Yeah, that shot was very reminiscent of blah 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 blah. Did you deliberately do that?" And I went, "Yeah, I did." I had no intention.
How would I not?
But we are talking about Alan Moore.
Yeah, I guess. Sometimes fans can tell you exactly what your film's all about, and you had no clue. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we've covered this in detail. So I think a good closing segment would be, let's go through the panel, and we'll say, what would you say to somebody who comes up to you and says, "I'm thinking of watching Show Pieces"? What do you? Let's start with Dan. We'll start with Dan.
I would, if somebody just said, "I'm thinking about watching this movie," Dan, what would you reckon? God, that depends on I'd say it's a great cure. If you've been having trouble sleeping for a few days, I think it's a great cure for insomnia. I think most people are, and this is no slight on it, because I do see worth in this kind of thing, and I do know who it's aimed at. I know why he made it, but I think generally, I'd say my experience is fairly universal. It would send a great deal of people to sleep, but by the end, I felt it did rally, and it started to remind me of things that I loved, like The Wicker Man and all that kind of thing. But there's just not enough.
That's another one we got to put in the vault. That's a great
and
movie.
The original. I mean, I haven't read any since the early 90s, so it really is the original. The first lot of Hellblazer comics as well, that kind of thing. But I have to say, I would not really recommend this film on any level to pretty much anybody, unless they were, I knew that they were deeply into this kind of thing. I'd certainly recommend it to yourself and to Problem B. And I mean, this is clearly right up your streets. I would probably recommend it to people who like David Lynch. And I do know people who like that, because I love David Lynch. But obviously, this is like the other. This is like David Lynch is here, and this is like somewhere out there.
David Lynch steroids.
Yes, so I pretty much would not recommend this under most circumstances. I'm sad to say, but I'm glad I watched it.
You see, I think that's actually kind of a universal thing. A lot of people, with it, not for me. I'm glad I watched it. I've heard that from many people.
Well, you told me about it, and I hadn't heard of it, and I would have been curious because I've followed Alan Moore's career right the way from the early 80s, the Marvel UK stuff, the 2000 AD stuff, and I haven't liked everything that he's done, and I certainly haven't liked everything that he's ever said, but I have respected him, and I've followed his career, and he is a one-off. He's a fascinating, incredibly grumpy man, and long may that continue.
Great follow-up question, which I'm going to ask you as well, Ian, so you have more time to think about it. Would you watch the next movie he did called The Show, which is set in the same universe?
2 hours. 2 hours film.
2 hours, no chance. No chance.
I tell you what,
I'll
watch it for you, and if I say this time you'll like it, because I know I'll blow all my my credibility.
I trust your judgment. I trust your judgment about what I would probably enjoy and what I wouldn't. But
right.
a 2 hour movie set in this universe, made in this manner, not a chance.
Okay, fine. Problem being, what would you say to somebody saying, I'm thinking of watching show pieces? What do you think?
I'd say you have to watch it. Like any piece of art that comes from someone I think generally respect in terms of creativity, as even just as an oddity in its own right. I mean, if people like things like The League of Gentlemen, Psychoville, Lynch, or has read Robert Anton Wilson, or has any knowledge of that kind of thing, I mean, you can sort of generally gauge what people's likes and loathings are. Generally, for my friends, I would suggest it. Absolutely, I think they would love it just as much as I did. Again,
I have a follow-up question. What happens if you tell your friends to watch it? They come to you and go, "What the hell did you do?" Like, I want that hour back. What are you going to say to them then?
I'd say, different horses for different courses. I'll stay in my lane, you stay in yours. I mean, I can see why it's not for everybody. I mean, you are talking to someone who sat through Inland Empire for the full 3.5 hours or whatever it was, and loved the first half of it. So yeah, I mean, it is.
What was the David Lynch movie with the guy who from Beretta who ended up going to jail or killed someone? Really weird David Lynch movie. That was the last one I could get through.
God, I don't know. I mean, that was the last David Lynch movie I ever saw. So that was enough for me. But I mean, as for following another film, full-length feature film, absolutely, I'm in 100%. Because I'd like to know where this goes. Because I was left at the end thinking, I want to see more. I want to know what happens. I want to see. I'd like to know why the boyfriend was running late or something to see his girlfriend. And what he might have been up to. So there's a whole other realm, within that potential thing. I mean, I guess you can look at it like Neverwhere, something like that. So it could be a whole sort of dream realm world. It's a bit like again like the Invisibles comic, where the Matrix sort of sprang from. So there's that whole dreamlike state thing.
Just as a complete aside, I saw that Grant Morrison was trying to sue the Matrix, the Wachowskis, and I've read the Invisibles back to front. I've seen every Matrix movie. That is, no wonder he didn't win his bloody court case.
Come on! Have you seen Books of Magic and the similarities between the Books of Magic comics to Harry Potter?
That's much closer.
Yeah. But I think there is. I mean, you don't have to be a carbon copy of, but I mean, to think that the Wachowskis hadn't read the Invisibles, I mean, there can be influences. I mean, there's no problem with that.
That's fair enough. But like to say it was plagiarized?
No, I don't think it's plagiarism. I said it sprang from that. I think I'm pretty sure they would have read those comics.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of comic influences. Mega Geek. Somebody comes up to you and says, Ian, I just got this movie. I've just got this movie. I'll show you the box.
Okay.
I just found it. Alan Moore. I saw it in the charity shop. I picked it up for £2. I can't wait to watch it. Am I going to enjoy it? What do you think here?
It depends on the person, doesn't it? So I wouldn't recommend it to anyone personally. Me, I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. I don't like that kind of filmmaking. You're talking to the man that doesn't like 2001, doesn't like Big Blue, found Blade Runner, even though he found a respect for Blade Runner as he got older, found Blade Runner really, really slow and dull, right? So that's who you're talking to. Of course, I'm not going to recommend this film because it's kind of, out there. But you know what, right? As I said, right, I wouldn't slag it off. I mean, it is very well made. It's very well performed. It's very well written. Right, with loads of different meanings in different parts and stuff. I could see what this could mean. I could see what that could mean. I just have a problem with the way he presented it. That's all. And I wouldn't recommend it. I would not see the 2-hour movie, the 2-hour movie either, because this one failed for me. But that's just me, right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So my take on it is, I would recommend it, but I would recommend it with this caveat that
caveat.
With caviar, every caviar is good.
I would watch it if you gave me some caviar.
Caviar. That I would recommend it, but I am an incredible snob, and I'm very pretentious. And I like enjoying things that other people don't understand. I like that superiority, even though it's false. I do enjoy that. So, I probably would be, if you're like me. So actually, listen, if you followed Alan Moore's work all your life and you've liked all of it, and you found all of it interesting, and you are prepared to do the work to access his work, then it's fair. If not, if you're more into the New Adventures of Old Christine, this one may not be for you. But every movie that's in the video vault is something that will add something interesting to your life, which is, I thought this was a good place to start. This will add something interesting to your life. You may love it, you may hate it, you may be a little bit ambivalent about it, but I think most people would say that was not something that you would have seen too many times before. I think it's a bit of it is a genuine, unique vision. I think that's a fair.
Even the soundtrack to this film, Alan Moore was saying that he wanted these songs to be in this film, but he thought that's going to be way too expensive, so he just rewrote the lyrics and kept the sort of idea of the songs, and then he had these guys come in and do the music for him. It's a guy from Low, a brilliant artist.
If you buy this thing, you get an illustrated script, and you get which is really quite cool. I'm trying to find illustrations in it, and you also get the DVD plus the CD of the original music.
I looked it up, and it's all sold out. It's all sold out. I can't get it.
Oh well, let me know if you want a copy or something.
Well, I want to see the two missing short films.
Fine. So I think we've done this. we covered it. The movie we're looking at next week, which all you gentlemen are more than invited to join, is Rumblefish. Have any of you seen it before?
Never.
Have you seen it, Ian?
Yeah.
What? Just give us a preview.
Well, I can't remember it. I've seen it. No. I would do this though because I enjoyed it.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah.
I
A
haven't
long
seen it.
time ago, though. I need to see it again. A long time ago. When did it come out, Rabbi? When did it come out?
Early 80s.
Around there. It's really actually the way you really should watch Rumblefish is watch it with The Outsiders back to back because it's a dark mirror of The Outsiders, which is like a pretty famous ensemble piece from I think the same year, and it's very fine. So I listen. I will send you guys links to it. So I hope you guys come back next week and join us as we delve through the video vault once again. Maybe we'll like it. Maybe we'll hate it. You never know. If you like media, if you like great movies, the competition this week is we do competitions every week. If you're new to the channel, the competition this week is a pretty darn good one. You can win the entire Godfather DVD collection, and even part 3. Okay, even part 3, really a good movie. It's like 3 degrees off in Inception, and comes about. All you need to do to win this is subscribe to the channel. Subscribing being the very important part from my perspective, anyway. Subscribe to the channel and then leave the hashtag. You broke my heart, Fredo. You broke my heart. Go to the video notes. You can copy and paste it. You don't need to type it out. Okay, copy and paste it. Also, there's a audio story you can download. I have no idea what that's going to be, but this gets done. Fine. I'm gonna thank everybody, and I'm gonna sign off. Thank you, Mega Geek. Please go and check out Rebecca Gold. Thank you, Dan. The space.
Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.
Cheers, ears.
Yeah, you check out Dan's channel, which is the
Space Book.
What's the channel called? Dan?
Oh, mine. Yeah, the channel's called the Space Book. If you like Doctor Who, but there are other things on the Space Book. Lots of that gentleman directly above me. He's on there talking about movies, most of which he's made, but some of which he hasn't. Lots and lots and lots more Doctor Who. Did I mention Doctor Who? But there is more to come. Starting next week, actually. A few little surprises coming. Science fiction, fantasy, and silliness in the Space Book's house style. Thank you very much.
Just take the link, the show, the video notes. Links to everyone's channel will be in there. Problem being, is there anything is there anywhere we can find you other than on other people's channels?
Well, no, I've been ousted off of Twitter. I've been emailing them for nearly a month, and they closed my my account without a single email. They closed down my whatever.
Why?
Because I defended my friends against bullies. Seemingly, that seems to be enough. Whilst they continue unabated.
That's basically why.
Yeah. So,
do you think so? It's not a technical. It's actually a decision that's been made that you've been effectively cancelled.
Yes, without any. I did appeal it.
Hashtag uncancel. Problem being, please.
My appeal was closed without any single email. So
Listen,
there you go. Work it out.
Problem being, get on your knees, whether you believe in God or not, and thank God.
I don't miss it. I don't miss it.
We miss you. We miss you.
We do miss you. Oh, don't. Twitter's terrible.
But you can find me occasionally within the chats or sometimes on the panels, particularly on Saturdays for the TARDIS Zone, the official TARDIS.
Is he a Bond? Is he? I'm sorry. Is he a Doctor Who fan? Are you a Doctor Who fan, Mr. Problem Being?
You were supposed to cast me as the Doctor, remember?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Fail.
Yeah, fail.
Say that we're all Doctor Who fans here. Fine. I'm going to thank everybody for coming once again. Come back next Friday when we look at the what we sing and Rumblefish. Rumblefish.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and have yourself a great weekend.